William Wallace, born around 1270 in the Elderslie estate near Paisley, Renfrewshire, was a product of a world on the edge of upheaval. His father, Sir Malcolm Wallace, was a minor landowner and knight, a vassal of James, the fifth steward of Scotland. Details about Wallace's early years are vague. Some tales hint at a surprising education, suggesting a privileged upbringing, possibly involving Catholic clergy, or a stint at a noble household. Medieval scholars often spun contradicting yarns around Wallace's origins, casting him as either a heroic underdog or an outlaw, depending on their allegiances. Wallace's rise was propelled by the chaos Edward I of England inflicted upon Scotland. After King Alexander III died without a clear heir in 1286, Edward installed John Balliol as a weak puppet on Scotland's throne, taxing and controlling the Scots until their patience frayed thin. Amid these political machinations, Wallace's legend begins. In May 1297, he killed William Heselrigg, an English sheriff, in an act of retaliation that echoed through the kingdom. This period of instability was fertile ground for Wallace's nascent leadership. His initial campaigns in Scone and Ancram, alongside William the Hardy, showed a keen eye for guerrilla warfare, possibly gleaned from earlier mercenary work. As Wallace's following grew, Scotland's resistance fragmented into a larger mosaic of defiance. Other players, like Andrew Murray in the north, complemented and occasionally overshadowed his efforts. Much of Wallace's initial strength lay in symbolising a wider aspiration for autonomy among Scots knighthood and the common folk alike. Wallace's attack on Lanark in May 1297, which resulted in the death of English Sheriff William Heselrigg, marked the beginning of a series of calculated moves that turned him from a man into a myth. This singular act ignited sparks across the land, attracting men driven by a shared thirst for resistance. Wallace's strategic mind harnessed this momentum, transforming disparate groups of rebels into a cohesive force. His campaigns were masterpieces of guerrilla warfare, targeting English outposts and establishing his own form of insurgent rule. The English, accustomed to rigid military protocol, found themselves paralysed by Wallace's unpredictable tactics. Striking fluidly and operating out of the forest of Selkirk, Wallace proved both elusive and devastating. His men, familiar with the dense terrain, turned each corner and thicket into potential ambush sites. This strategy was repeated in places like Scone, Ancram and Dundee, where English forces found themselves outflanked by a foe who vanished as quickly as he appeared. A key point in Wallace's ascent was his symbiotic relationship with other Scottish leaders like Andrew Murray in the north. The Battle of Stirling Bridge in September 1297 was emblematic of this unity. Wallace and Murray's forces utilised their knowledge of local geography to trap the English, resulting in a decisive victory. Knighted and recognised as the Guardian of Scotland after Stirling Bridge, Wallace became a symbol of Scotland's yearning for freedom. His rise was meteoric, harnessing the raw energy of a nation straining against unfavourable odds. The Battle of Stirling Bridge on September 11, 1297, was a defining moment for William Wallace and Andrew Murray. As the English troops, led by John de Warenne, Earl of Surrey, began crossing the narrow stone bridge over the River Forth, Wallace and Murray lay in wait. They had chosen their ground carefully, positioning their forces to take advantage of the landscape's natural funneling effect. When about half the English forces had crossed, the Scots unleashed their concealed troops. The English, divided by the river and hemmed in by the bridge's narrow confines, struggled to maintain order. The Scots, fighting with tactical acumen, turned the bridge into a death trap. English knights and foot soldiers were either felled by Scottish blades or drowned in the river, weighed down by their armour. Among the notable casualties was Hugh de Cressingham, the hated English treasurer. The victory wasn't just about immediate military gains, it was a psychological triumph, rallying support for the Scottish resistance. The Scots had taken on a superior force and triumphed decisively, shattering the illusion of English invincibility. The outcome had significant ramifications. The English retreated, leaving Wallace and Murray in command of most of central Scotland. This success cemented Wallace's role as a formidable leader of the resistance. It underscored the importance of local knowledge and guerrilla tactics in warfare. The Battle of Stirling Bridge remains a symbol of defiance and tactical prowess in the broader context of the Scottish struggle for independence. It highlighted the strength of unity and the power of an expertly executed plan. For William Wallace, it was a militaristic feat and an emblematic turning point, casting him as a national icon. Following the victory at Stirling Bridge, Wallace found himself propelled to the position of Guardian of Scotland. However, this newfound prominence drew the ire of Edward I of England, who was determined to reclaim control. Edward prepared for a campaign to quash the Scottish rebellion, mustering an army equipped with the latest military technology, including the devastating Welsh longbows. Wallace employed a strategy of strategic retreat and scorched earth tactics, withdrawing deeper into Scottish territory and destroying crops and supplies to deprive the English of sustenance. Despite nearly forcing Edward to retreat due to starvation and low morale, a chance encounter near Falkirk brought matters to a head. Wallace arranged his infantry into 4 schiltrons, tightly packed formations designed to fend off cavalry charges. However, Edward had learned from his previous encounter. The English troops, composed of knights, infantry and Welsh longbowmen, approached Wallace's position with disciplined efficiency. The longbows proved to be the decisive factor, as the archers unleashed a devastating barrage of arrows on the Scottish ranks. The open fields of Falkirk allowed the archers to maximise their range and lethality, causing the Scottish formations to disintegrate under the onslaught. Once the spearmen broke ranks, they were easy prey for the English cavalry. Wallace himself barely escaped the carnage, but the battle resulted in an estimated 20,000 Scottish casualties compared to around 2,000 Englishmen. The loss at Falkirk had immediate repercussions for Wallace. He resigned as Guardian of Scotland, and his standing among the Scottish nobility fractured. The battle symbolised a strategic miscalculation, as Wallace's tactics faltered in the face of large-scale conventional warfare against a technologically and numerically superior enemy. Wallace faded into the political shadows, but continued to seek support for Scotland's cause, slipping into the role of a wandering diplomat and guerrilla leader. His relentless quest for freedom eventually led to his capture and brutal execution in 1305. However, his legacy endured, symbolising the undying spirit of resistance against oppression. Falkirk served as a pivotal lesson in the larger tapestry of Scottish defiance. It cast Wallace not just as a military leader, but as an enduring emblem of valour and sacrifice, anchoring his place in history as a symbol of the relentless quest for freedom. On August 3, 1305, near Glasgow, Wallace was captured by a fellow Scotsman, Sir John Menteith. Taken to London, Wallace faced a predetermined trial in Westminster Hall. The charges against him included treason, homicide, robbery. Despite his logical defence that he had never sworn allegiance to Edward and thus could not have committed treason, the verdict was swift: guilty on all counts. The sentence was a gruesome demonstration of medieval punishment. Wallace was to be hanged, drawn and quartered. He was dragged through the streets of London by 4 horses, then hanged until near unconsciousness. His genitals were sliced off and his organs removed from his living body before he was finally beheaded. His body was quartered, with the remnants dispersed to various locations, and his head spiked atop London Bridge. Rather than instilling fear, Wallace's brutal execution carved his legacy deeper into the Scottish psyche. The graphic depiction of his torment served as a rallying cry, and the Scots found a martyr in Wallace. His courage and sacrifice became the bedrock for an unwavering spirit of rebellion. Wallace's death galvanised the continuation of the struggle for Scottish independence. Lesser-known resistors, alongside notable figures like Robert the Bruce, took up the mantle with renewed vigour. The brutality of his execution underscored the oppressive nature of English rule and solidified sentiments of national identity and resistance. From insurrections to European courts, the figure of William Wallace haunted the English and inspired the Scots. His saga became a poignant beacon illuminating the narrative of a nation's persistent quest for sovereignty. Wallace's capture, trial and execution were not the conclusion of his legend, but a transition. The details of his death fueled the fires of independence, ensuring that he remained a symbol of unyielding defiance. His life and ultimate sacrifice laid the groundwork for Scotland's enduring legacy of resistance, resonating through the ages as a testament to the struggle for freedom. William Wallace's life and sacrifice symbolised the relentless quest for freedom. His legacy endures, reminding us of the enduring spirit of resistance and the profound impact one individual can have on a nation's history.